Hi and welcome. So today I want to share with you how your emotional eating is impacting your health and even your hormones. So if you're new here, welcome. My name is Michelle. I'm a certified holistic nutritionist and emotional eating expert. And I wanted to touch upon this subject with emotional eating and the other health impacts that clients usually have when they come to see me. So emotional eating tends to be the main thing that they're wanting to resolve, but they usually come along with all of these other issues. And so it's important. I wanted to share with you why that's the case. And, when I was going through my own emotional eating journey, emotional eating was the main thing that was happening, but other health issues were coming up as well, like digestive issues and more inflammatory issues and pain. And so I see this with clients as well. So the main thing when they come to me is they feel really out of control around their body, their hunger, and they want to get a handle on that. But then they also have inflammatory conditions, or they have digestive issues. They have a lot of the time weight gain, and they have low energy. They don't feel great in their body. And all of these things are so interconnected and interrelated. And so I want to start off with how emotional eating sort of is at the root of this. And that's the main thing I want to address, because the other issues can start lessening and even becoming not an issue once we deal with the emotional eating. And so with emotional eating, just to kind of go into the background, emotional eating and emotional eaters, like myself in a former life, would use food to soothe whenever uncomfortable emotions would come up, or, if I was in a situation that I felt really unregulated in my body, I used food to soothe myself to kind of temporarily feel calm and okay. And so this is important, because what's happening here when we emotionally eat, we're actually using food to sort of distract, dismiss, avoid any uncomfortable emotion we're feeling, any discomfort in our body. And so when we do that, we are not actually looking at the emotion. We're sort of like, here's the emotion, and we put a Band-Aid on top, which is food. So whenever we eat, what physiologically happens in our body, eating feels good. It creates feel good sensations in our body. Our body releases sort of endorphins because we want to be eating. That's how we survive. And so it's a really great Band-Aid to help us with when we're not feeling so great, but it's not a solution. And so those emotions live in our body. So emotions are released whenever we feel a certain way, sort of like when we have stress, we have cortisol, or when we're happy, we have serotonin. Our body releases chemicals in response to each emotion. And so when we don't feel the emotion to completion, it gets stuck in our body. So our body holds on to these emotions. And so a trauma is whenever we have had an emotional event and it wasn't resolved. We were left feeling unresolved. We didn't fully feel it. We didn't feel resolved from it. And that's what a trauma really is. And I've done another video on emotional eating and trauma. And so when those emotions are stored in our body, they sort of loop in our nervous system, and they're waiting to be resolved. And so whenever we get triggered into a similar situation and we feel the same uncomfortable emotions come up, they're coming up for us to resolve them, to process them. But what we do, and what our brain has been trained to do from a really young age, is to go into our emotional eating pattern. So we keep constantly going to food whenever this discomfort comes up, because we didn't learn how to really be with our emotions. We weren't modeled this from a young age. We need that modeling from our parents or caregivers of how to regulate our bodies and our emotions. And we most likely didn't have it, because most of us don't really have that container when we're growing up. And so these emotions, they get stuck, and we keep going back into our emotional eating pattern. We keep going back. But all of these emotions are stuck in our body, and they accumulate in certain parts. And because they create stress, let's say cortisol, over time we create sort of chronic stress in our body, which leads to inflammation, which leads to dis-ease and, sort of health issues and weight gain and holding on to weight. and hormonal issues, because cortisol is a hormone, and when we have chronic stress, it starts impacting our other hormones in our body. And so then we have all of these other things. Our immune system, that's inflammation, is connected to that. We have other conditions with even, let's say estrogen or testosterone. Everything gets imbalanced by this cortisol. And over time, it creates these issues in our bodies. And so, it's because we have all these unprocessed emotions, you could say, in our body, all of these chemicals creating this stress. And if we constantly go to food to cope, we're just creating more and more of an issue. And so this is why over time we develop these health issues in our body, because we're not clearing out what needs to be cleared out. We're not rebalancing after our emotions. We're really taught as a society to suppress, deny, push away, sweep under the rug our emotions. And when the discomfort comes up to be looked at, we eat or we distract ourselves with something else. And so the solution really is 3 parts. So when I see this pattern in clients, we have to look at this in 3 parts. And that goes into the philosophy of my program, the Emotional Eating Evolution Program. We look at true nourishment, body acceptance, and emotional wellness. The true nourishment piece comes in because a layer to this pattern is dieting and not even knowing how to nourish our bodies. We've just been taught to restrict and deprive. And so we need to really deeply nourish the body. We also need to deeply nourish the body because we're nourishing our nervous system and replenishing it after it's been stressed out for years and years with these unprocessed emotions and life events. We need to really build up that nourishment and make sure we have a strong container to even process through our emotions, that we're absorbing nutrients, and that we're learning the difference between true and emotional hunger, because that's a gateway, that's a doorway into this pattern. The second area that's really important is body acceptance. So again, this is something that's layered on our emotional eating when our body doesn't look a certain way, or we think if we look a certain way, we'll finally get those emotional needs met, but that doesn't happen. And so we punish and criticize our body. We go to the gym, and in this sort of mentality, we create more stress. So we're adding on to the program. So we need to come back to body acceptance, even to appreciation and learning the rhythms and rituals that are going to support our body and really create that strong container again. And then finally, we have the emotional wellness piece, because as you can see, it's these unprocessed, unresolved emotions that are stuck in our body we need to process out. And the process that I use with clients is a specific process to get into that subconscious pattern of emotional eating and any unresolved issues keeping you in that pattern. Sometimes it's people pleasing. There's so many things that come up, and allowing you to process these emotions, resolve it, and actually find what you needed and to move forward in a really empowering way. So you're no longer using this pattern, that you learn how to feel safe in your body, to process your emotions, to, be that container you needed when you were younger, so that you feel really clear moving forward. And as we work with these 3 areas, what happens is that emotional eating pattern resolves, and we're also nourishing the body. So we're taking care of all of the issues that have come out as a result of emotional eating and suppressing emotions. We start nourishing the body and looking and rebalancing it physically and even mentally and emotionally. So we're looking at you really holistically, and this becomes a sustainable way of moving through and resolving your emotional eating. You're no longer, running to the next diet or over exercising or going to therapy without the results and without really deeply understanding what's going on in the body. And so this has been so powerful for me to move through my emotional eating, and my clients as well. This is sustainable. So when you're in the program, the Emotional Eating Evolution Program, you have all the tools that you need, the deeper tools to move forward and move through this pattern and to finally resolve it. And you have support and community and accountability so that you're making these changes that have been so difficult to make, and you're understanding what's been really going on. You're not just looking at the surface thinking something's wrong with you. You start understanding what's really been going on. So if this is resonating with you and you've been looking for a true solution to your emotional eating that gets to all of these layers, this program, is definitely for you. It's very unique. It is not the typical way that you deal with emotional eating. It is a new way because we need a new way to have a true solution and true resolution. So if this is resonating with you, I'd love to invite you to book in an emotional eating assessment call. This is the best way to know if you're a fit for the program, if the program can support you. If you have any questions, please let me know, and please be sure to like and subscribe. I look forward to sharing more with you, and I hope you have a great day.